All right, welcome back to Truck Talks. Not the kind of truck talk where I'm pissed off about Obama and like NASCAR, but the kind where I just talk about whatever's on my mind at the time because I think it's important and have nobody to talk to. I probably do have people to talk to, but I probably don't. It's a lot of effort to talk. So I just talk when I want to get it out, right? Anyways, if you don't like the channel, that's fine. See you later. If you do, hopefully we learned something. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. We can chat about it. So long as you are cordial and tactful, I'll be the same with you. Anyways, so today I want to talk about barriers of entry to strength and conditioning as I see it right now, right? So like I was in personal training for like 9 years, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to rework. I guess I still am in personal training a little bit, but I was like, okay, I'm going to rework this career because of the economy, and I'm going to go strength conditioning, right? So I have a little bit of strength conditioning, like interning type experience, and I worked with sport clubs for a long time. So like college sport clubs, right? So I'm like applying for jobs and I'm looking around, right? And I know it's not the highest paying profession, but I wanted to talk about the barriers of entry because it's insane, right? So traditionally in strength and conditioning, as of 2000 whatever, you need a bachelor's degree of any kind, and you need, a CSCS, right? Which is an external certification that you have to have a bachelor's degree to get. And then you need some type of experience, right? You got to have at least a little bit. But 99.9% of all the jobs that I look at right now require the bachelor's and the CSCS, of course. But now most people are starting to prefer the SCCC, which is the cert from the CSAAQ, whatever. Anyways, there's that one, which has an internship requirement of, I guess, is a mentorship requirement of like 640 hours, and then you have to take a written test, and then you have to go present a program before a panel of master strength and conditioning coaches and defend it, right? And I'm like, that's super cool, way cool if you can do that. But it's starting to become something that's preferred. So something that's becoming preferred is going to become the bare minimum in the future, as far as I'm concerned. So you need a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree is preferred in most cases. And then at minimum for most of these jobs, you need 2 years of experience. So like, how do you get, and these are for assistant strength coach positions. So like, how do you get 2 years of experience when you can't get a job without experience, right? And the answer is you have to work for free, right? You might be able to get a paid internship, but I doubt it, because if it's with collegiate strength and conditioning, most colleges don't have that in the budget, or there's some type of stupid state law that says you can't do that, right? Because you probably couldn't get paid because the NCAA requires that you have the CSCS certification at the minimum, right? So you can't even like be in there by yourself without that credential. But so you have to do this interning. The problem is that one, you got to work for free while you're paying for a freaking degree and then some, right? And then two, as an intern, you never have even close to the same responsibilities as a full-time strength coach, right? So you're not doing any of the programming. You might write like mock programs or whatever, but they're not going to implement them unless you're special. You don't have any of that. You do like some coaching, like you're there, but that's always secondary to the head coach, because the coach that's in charge of that team is always going to overrule whatever. So there's not as much responsibility, because you could say something stupid, which is how you learn, and then the other coach is going to come in and, fix it or correct it, right? But there's not high stakes, because if an athlete's working with me and they get injured, it's my fault, but the university's going to look at it as it's the coach who I'm working under. It's their fault, because they're the ones responsible for that team, right? I'm not meeting with athletes. I'm not, watching practices. I'm not talking to parents. I'm not really accountable to anybody except whoever's in charge of my internship. So, and I'm not doing the programming for the whole year. I'm just doing it for the time that I'm there, right? So that's a pretty big barrier to entry, because they want you to come in with 2 years of collegiate experience, but you don't even get the full experience when you're doing it. And it's not like the fault of anybody per se, but it's just kind of ridiculous, because when I go apply for jobs, right, they're going to say, okay, tell me about your experience working with blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to say, well, I just helped coach them while I was there. Like, what else am I really going to say unless I'm lying about it, right? Because I didn't write the program. I can say that, I wrote this mock program. Here you go. I can do this. I can prove to you that I can coach people effectively, right? I can do that in like a a practical interview or whatever it is. But I can't say I really did anything because there's no responsibility there, right? I could say that, I worked with force plates and the perch movement velocity system, and I can say I used TENS units or the Voltra freaking system or what Velociraptor system, whatever the heck it is, because everybody's always got a dumb name for things. So I can say I work with Velociraptors, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's really a good way to assess if a coach that you're looking to hire is going to be competent and effective at delivering quality programs and administering them to a diverse group of athletes. You can get a pretty good idea if somebody knows what they're talking about just by talking about them, right? So I work with coaches, like I can talk with them, I can watch what they do, and I know they're good. No qualms. You can also tell a bad coach pretty quickly, right? Like I can tell a coach is smoked out of his mind, or her mind, if that's the case, right? I don't work with any of those, but I can tell them when I see them, right? Same thing with personal training. Anybody can spot a bad personal trainer, right? For the most part. But so the barriers only get harder, right? As more people flood into the industry. So it's I guess the point is that like you want high standards to train athletes because you want high performing athletes. No questions asked. No qualms with that. But you can't get experience unless you do it. So maybe the barrier shouldn't be experience at this level, but experience at some kind of level. That way your ability to retain new information more quickly and synthesize that and apply that when you are actually in those positions is just all a little bit easier, and a hiring committee can have a little bit more confidence in you as a coach coming in. So like for the jobs that I want way down the road, working with like the Marine Corps as a tactical strength and conditioning coach, basically all of those jobs require 3 years minimum collegiate experience, full-time collegiate experience, right? And or full-time working with tactical athletes, you don't need 3 years of that specific experience to make it happen. It might be preferred, right? So I could apply and maybe they'll give it to me, right? But you don't necessarily need it, because I could go home this weekend. Let's take hockey. I don't know anything about hockey. I don't watch hockey. Never played hockey. I've coached men's ice hockey for club, and I've written a paper on the annual training cycle for hockey. But realistically, I don't know anything about ice hockey. But so long as I had data on the group of individuals that I was working with, I could go home on a weekend, watch some videos on YouTube, read some articles, and I could come up with a pretty decent program and implement it for hockey athletes. But I've also got, I got into the industry in 2013, right? So it's I've learned a little bit of things along the way, and I can do that. But the one thing that people always miss, is that a good coach will use the coaches around them to help them when they need help, right? Developing programs, coaching, whatever it is. You're never really doing anything on your own unless you're with a small school, or you just don't have other coaches there with you, and you're in charge of everything there, right? So that's always a possibility. But in all reality, like I did with this mock program, before I present it tomorrow, I just went and asked coaches. I asked my mentor from a long time ago. I asked my old boss from a long time ago. I asked 2 of the coaches that are already there. I asked some questions to the head coach about just, does this belong in this, blah, 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 not specifically about my program. So I think it's kind of stupid to assume that, you're not going to ask these people questions when you have them and you're, in charge of something. If you put me in charge of cheer, I don't know crap about cheer, but I'll figure it out because I have the internet and I have other coaches around me. And I think that's super viable. So I think realistically what these jobs are, to wrap it up, I think these jobs should really assess if somebody is capable of learning more than they already know, and if they're going to be receptive to feedback when they get it, and if they're going to work well with the people around them. I think those are the really most important things, because you could write me a great program as a coach, but I have no idea if you could communicate with an athlete, or you can take feedback from another coach and not get your feelings hurt. So I don't know, man. It is what it is. Truck talks.